You know that feeling, right? You're um, maybe at a work thing or just waiting somewhere speaking English,
Hmm.
and someone kind of catches your eye. Maybe they smile,
Hmm.
and you think, okay, I should say something, connect. But then, blank. Your mind just freezes up. What on earth do you say? How do you even start?
Oh yeah, that's a really common feeling, isn't it? That little moment of panic, maybe, where you just don't have the words ready or you're worried about saying the wrong thing.
Exactly. And the silence just kind of stretches and
Yeah.
stretches. It gets more awkward by the second.
It really does. And it can feel like this invisible wall, stopping you from just making a simple connection or even just feeling, well, comfortable in everyday English situations.
Totally. But what if you could feel more prepared? Like have a toolkit for those moments. Well, today we've been looking into some materials, some sources that are basically a guide for exactly this,
Yeah.
for getting better at small talk in English.
Yeah, this deep dive we're doing is all about unpacking the basics of that kind of casual chat. The material helps clarify, what small talk actually is, why it's surprisingly important in a lot of English-speaking cultures, and gives some really practical tips on handling those first interactions with more confidence.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. We're going to unpack everything this material offers, look at what small talk really is and maybe what it isn't,
Right.
explore why it matters, its purpose, especially in places where English is the main language, and then crucially get into the practical stuff, the nuts and bolts.
Mm-hmm. Like what topics usually work.
Yeah, what's safe to talk about, and maybe just as importantly, what topics should you probably steer clear of,
Definitely.
and how understanding the sort of cultural expectations around it can help you feel less awkward and more, well, natural when you're speaking English.
The goal really is to help you shift from feeling kind of awkward or stressed in those situations to feeling more at ease, more confident. Because as we'll see from the material, getting comfortable with small talk isn't just about, filling silence. It's actually a pretty basic skill for building connections and just feeling, well, part of things.
All right, let's dive in then. Let's start right at the beginning. Based on the material, how do we define small talk? What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, essentially, the sources define it as light, casual conversation. It's
Mm.
really explicit about this. Small talk is not the place for deep, heavy, or really serious subjects.
Okay, so no diving into existential crises or complex political theory right off the bat.
Probably not recommended, no. It's focused on, everyday things, topics that are generally easy, accessible, and pretty non-controversial, things you can chat about without needing a lot of prior knowledge or emotional investment.
Got it. Keep it light, keep it surface level initially. And the material we looked at makes it clear this isn't just like pointless chatter, is it? It actually serves some important functions.
Oh, definitely. It's not random at all. One of its main jobs is simply helping people feel comfortable with each other. Think of it like a social lubricant.
Hmm.
It eases any potential stiffness or awkwardness when people first come together or share a space.
That makes a lot of sense, like warming things up, putting people at ease before you, I don't know, get down to business or have a longer conversation.
Exactly. It helps build connections too. Even if they're just brief, temporary connections, it's still a form of connection. And maybe the most obvious one, thinking back to that awkward silence you mentioned,
Yeah.
it makes social situations feel way less awkward. Small talk is basically designed to fill that potentially uncomfortable silence. It's the tool you use to, as the material puts it, break the silence.
Right, break the silence. I like that phrase. The material had a really good example for this, didn't it? About two strangers on a plane.
Yes, that was a great illustration. The point was, imagine two people sitting next to each other before the plane takes off.
Okay.
They probably wouldn't immediately turn to each other and start discussing their deepest fears or their complicated relationship history.
No, that would be
Ins-
intense
Yeah.
and really weird, probably.
Exactly. It would feel completely out of place, jarring, like you said.
Yeah.
Instead, the material suggests they might say something really simple, something observational about the shared situation.
Like, oh, looks like we might be waiting a bit. Or maybe comment on the weather outside the window.
Precisely. Or the example given was, wow, it looks like we're going to have a smooth flight today. Just a simple, neutral observation.
And that single comment, smooth flight today, it does a lot of work, doesn't it?
It really does. Think about it. It acknowledges they're in the same boat, literally, sharing the same experience.
Hmm.
It breaks that silence in a really low-pressure, non-threatening way. It kind of opens the door just a crack for maybe a brief response or maybe nothing more. But the option is there.
It takes the edge off the silence.
Right. It creates this little pocket of shared, comfortable space where before there was just, well, nothing, just two strangers sitting there. It makes the whole situation feel a tiny bit less anonymous, more human.
That example really nails the function. It's about finding common ground, however small, in a light way. Now, something else the material really stresses is the cultural side of this, especially in English-speaking cultures.
Yeah, this was a really key point. The sources state pretty clearly that in many English-speaking countries, small talk isn't just, a nice extra thing you can do sometimes. It's often expected.
Expected, like you're supposed to do it.
In many contexts, yes, it's presented as a standard part of how you start interactions or just navigate social situations. It's almost like a necessary first step sometimes.
So if you don't do it,
Hmm.
it could seem a bit off.
The material suggests exactly that. Skipping it, like jumping straight into the main topic or the task at hand, especially in certain situations, can make you seem, and the quote was, a bit weird or maybe too formal, even cold.
And it used the example of a work meeting, right?
Yes, that was a very specific and relatable example. Imagine walking into a meeting room, maybe in the US or the UK, as the material mentioned,
Okay.
and instead of any initial pleasantries, you just sit down and say, right, let's get started. Agenda item 1, without anything before it.
Yeah, without the usual like, hey, how was your weekend? Or did you see the game last night? Or even just morning.
Exactly, those little bits of connection. According to the material, skipping those completely might make you come across as a bit too serious or even unfriendly.
Wow. So it really sets a tone, maybe a tone that feels purely transactional, like you're not interested in the people, just the task.
That's the implication. It's about establishing that little bit of human connection, that rapport first, even if it's minimal, before you dive into the main reason you're there. So understanding this cultural expectation, as the material emphasizes, is really important if you want to feel more natural, more comfortable when you're interacting in these English-speaking environments. It's a crucial piece of the social code.
So it's really more than just language, isn't it? It's about understanding social norms, cultural cues. It's like the social glue.
That's a great way to put it. Social glue. It eases things, connects people, prepares the ground for whatever comes next, whether it's a deeper conversation or just getting a task done together. It makes the initial contact feel, well, pleasant and comfortable.
Okay, so we've got a handle on what small talk is: light, casual, purposeful,
Yeah.
and why it's important, even expected, in many English-speaking cultures. That covers the what's and why. So the next big question, the one material tackles directly, is the how. What do people actually talk about? What are the safe, reliable, go-to topics?
Right. And the material gives us a really useful list. It identifies several topics that it says work in almost any situation. These are your reliable starting points.
And number one on the list, almost inevitably, the weather.
Ah, yes. The undisputed champion. The material even says, it sounds basic, but trust me, it works. Huh? I believe it. And the reason it works so well, as the source explains, is because it's truly universal. Everyone, everywhere, is experiencing some kind of weather.
Right. It's immediate. It's shared. You don't need any special knowledge.
Exactly. It's right there, outside the window, or when you step outside. The material mentions its popularity across the board: US, UK, Canada, Australia, but it adds that interesting little detail about the UK.
Oh, yeah, that it's practically a national hobby there.
Exactly. Which is quite telling, isn't it? It suggests that while it's a safe topic everywhere, in some places like the UK, it's even more deeply ingrained as the go-to way to start a chat. It's not just a fallback, it's a cultural norm.
So how do you actually do weather talk?
Well, the material gives some super simple examples. If it's nice out, it's such a nice day today. Simple statement. If it's not so nice, wow, it's freezing outside, or looks like it might rain later. You're basically just voicing a shared observation about the environment. It's easy, low risk.
Okay, weather, check.
Hmm.
Simple, safe, always relevant.
Hmm.
What's next on the list of reliable topics?
Weekend plans. This is flagged as another really safe and easy area.
Ah, yeah, people usually like talking about their time off.
Generally, yes. Or what they're looking forward to. It's about leisure time, which is usually a positive topic. The material suggests straightforward questions.
Like if it's Friday, you could ask, got any fun plans for the weekend?
Perfect. Or if it's Monday morning, the classic, how was your weekend?
Those are definitely common. I hear those all the time.
And they work because they show a general, friendly interest without being nosy. You're not asking for deep secrets just about their recent leisure activities. It invites stories about relaxing, hobbies, family, friends, usually light stuff.
And it works in lots of situations, right? Colleagues, neighbors.
Absolutely. Work, social events, waiting in line somewhere. And the conversation can easily branch off. If someone says, oh, I just took it easy at home, you can follow up with something simple like, oh, nice, watch anything good, or catch up on any reading. It keeps the ball rolling gently.
Okay, so weather, weekend plans.
Mhm.
The third topic the material recommends is travel.
Yes. The source notes that everyone loves talking about travel, or at least many people do. It taps into good memories, dreams, future plans. It's generally a positive and engaging subject.
It feels like a topic with lots of potential. What are the example questions?
The material suggests things like, have you been on any trips lately? Which is nice and open-ended. Or a more fun, forward-looking one. What's your dream travel destination?
Ooh, I like that one. It can lead anywhere.
Exactly. These aren't just yes/no questions. They invite a story, an opinion. And this is where the material highlights something really important about keeping the conversation going.
The follow-up question.
Yes. So if someone answers, oh, I went to Italy last year, you don't just nod and say, cool.
Right, that kills the conversation.
It does. The material gives a great example of a follow-up. Oh, that sounds amazing. What was your favorite part? See how that works?
Yeah, it shows you are actually listening and you're genuinely interested. It prompts them to share more detail.
Precisely. It turns a simple exchange into a slightly more engaging conversation. It's that active listening and responding that the material points to as key for keeping small talk alive. It's not an interview. It's a back and forth.
That follow-up is so crucial. Okay, weather, weekend, travel. What's the fourth safe bet, according to the source?
Food.
Another universal.
The material calls this one super easy for the very basic reason that, well, everyone eats. Like weather, it's something absolutely everyone experiences.
So what are the conversation starters for food?
Simple, accessible questions again, like, have you tried any good restaurants lately? Or do you like cooking?
Okay, those seem easy enough.
They really are, because most people have something to say about food. Maybe they tried a new cafe, maybe they love cooking a specific dish, maybe they just ordered a great pizza last night, whatever it is, the material says, and boom, you have a conversation.
Yeah, right. Instant conversation.
Pretty much. It doesn't require expertise, just personal experience or preference. Sharing tips about a local bakery, complaining playfully about a bad meal, asking for recommendations. It's all fair game and usually quite comfortable.
So our safe quartet, based on the material,
Hmm.
weather, weekend plans, travel, and food. If we step back for a second, why these four? What makes them inherently safe for small talk based on everything we've discussed?
Well, pulling it all together, the idea that small talk should be light, comfortable, connection building, non-controversial, these topics fit perfectly. Firstly, like we said, they're generally neutral. You're unlikely to start a fight talking about whether it's sunny or if someone enjoyed their pasta.
Right, low risk of conflict.
Very low. Secondly, they don't require deep personal revelations. You can talk about your weekend or a trip without sharing anything too private or sensitive. This maintains comfort, especially with people you don't know well.
Keeps boundaries intact while still connecting.
Exactly. And thirdly, they're broadly relatable. Most people experience weather, have weekends, eat food, and have thoughts or experiences related to travel. This means almost anyone can jump into the conversation. It's inclusive.
So neutral, low disclosure, and relatable. That makes sense. They tick all the boxes for easy, comfortable interaction.
Precisely. They're designed for low friction, easy engagement, ideal for those initial moments of interaction.
Okay, great. We have our toolkit of safe topics. But the material rightly points out knowing what not to say is maybe even more important sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Avoiding conversational landmines is key to keeping small talk smooth and positive. The source is very clear about topics to generally avoid.
And the first big one it warns about is politics.
Yeah, that gets a strong caution. The reason given is straightforward. People have very strong opinions about it, and crucially, a discussion can turn into a debate really quickly.
Which is the opposite of light and breezy.
Totally. And the material adds that little note saying this is especially in the U.S.
Right, suggesting maybe the cultural context there makes it even more potentially explosive for casual chat.
It seems to imply that.
Yeah.
In places with high political polarization, bringing up politics with a stranger or casual acquaintance is just high risk. Small talk aims for comfort, connection, finding common ground. Politics often does the exact opposite, highlighting differences, potentially causing arguments and creating tension. It's usually best saved for people you know well, where you understand their views and have agreed to discuss it.
Yeah, you're aiming for a handshake, not a wrestling match. Okay, politics is out. What's the next topic on the avoid list?
Money. The material is very direct here, asking things like, how much do you make? Or how much did your house cost? Is likely to make people uncomfortable.
And it mentions this isn't just an English-speaking thing, but in many cultures, asking about personal finances, especially with people you don't know well, is considered rude.
That's right. Financial details are generally seen as private information. Asking direct questions about someone's salary, their spending, the cost of their possessions, it feels intrusive. It shifts the focus from friendly connection to like a financial audit.
Yeah, definitely awkward.
It puts the other person in a really awkward spot. Do they answer? Dodge the question? Lie? It just creates discomfort, which is precisely what small talk tries to avoid.
Okay, so no politics, no money talk. What's the third category to be careful with? The material called it personal topics.
Yes, and it gave specific examples like asking someone's age, their weight, or their relationship status. These can be, as the source says, a bit awkward.
They can feel quite intrusive, can't they?
They really can. And the material offered a great alternative. Instead of a direct, potentially sensitive question like, are you married? Which makes assumptions and probes into private life, it suggested shifting to something more general but still social.
What was the example? Do you have plans for the holidays?
Exactly. See the difference. Asking age or weight is often taboo or just plain rude. Relationship status can be complicated, sensitive, or simply none of your business in a casual chat. The holiday question, though, is friendly, shows interest, but focuses on activities and plans, which are much safer conversational ground.
That's a really useful distinction. Focus on activities, experiences, general plans, not intrinsic personal details or status.
Precisely. It keeps the connection going but respects personal boundaries. It avoids making people feel scrutinized or judged based on personal characteristics or life choices.
Makes sense. And the final category of things to avoid.
Negativity. Just starting off with complaints. The material warns against opening lines like, ugh, I hate my job, or this city is terrible.
Right, because the whole point is to be light and positive. The advice was basically try to keep things upbeat.
Yeah, launching into negativity is counterproductive. Small talk is meant to create a pleasant, comfortable atmosphere. Starting with a complaint immediately makes the interaction feel heavy, maybe even burdensome for the other person.
Yeah, it puts them in an awkward position. Do they agree? Try to cheer you up. It's just downbeat.
Exactly. It kind of drags the mood down from the start. People are generally drawn to positivity in these brief encounters. A constant stream of complaints tends to push people away. Small talk is about sharing a moment of lightness, not unloading your frustrations onto a relative stranger.
Okay, so summarizing the don'ts based on the material.
Yeah.
Steer clear of politics, money, overly personal questions, age, weight, relationship status, and starting with negativity or complaints.
Yeah.
Because they introduce conflict, intrusion, or just general unpleasantness.
Exactly. All things that work directly against the core purpose of small talk, which is building light, positive, comfortable connections.
We've covered a lot. The what, the why, the safe topics, the risky topics. But the material added another really important layer, didn't it? The cultural nuances. How it's not just what you say, but how and where.
Yes, this is where it gets really interesting. It moves beyond just memorizing phrases. The sources emphasize that understanding the context, the specific situation, and even subtle differences between various English-speaking cultures is key to feeling genuinely confident and natural.
So how you do small talk might look a little different in London versus Los Angeles, or in an office versus a cafe.
Potentially, yes. The core principles might be similar, but the emphasis or the common practices might vary. And knowing this helps you navigate things more smoothly. The material gave some concrete examples of where small talk is really common. The workplace was a big one.
Right, specifically before a meeting starts, that time when people are gathering.
Exactly. The material highlights this as a prime small talk zone in many English-speaking workplaces. And it reinforces that the topics used here are usually those safe ones. How was the weekend, the weather, maybe sports, if that's common ground.
And it brings back that point about seeming too serious or even unfriendly if you skip it in, say, the US or UK.
Right. It underscores that in these work cultures, that initial chit-chat isn't just filler, it's part of the process. It's about building rapport with colleagues, creating a positive team dynamic before you get down to the agenda. Skipping it can feel abrupt, maybe even disrespectful of the social element of work. It's like a gentle transition into work mode.
Okay, the workplace is one key context. What about everyday life? The material mentioned places like coffee shops.
Yeah, illustrating those quick, almost fleeting interactions. The example was the barista asking, "How's your day going?" as they take your order.
And the suggested reply was something like, pretty good, just grabbing some coffee before work. How about you?
Perfect. It's super brief, right? But think about what it does. It elevates a simple transaction order, pay, receive coffee, into a small human interaction.
Yeah, it makes it less robotic.
Exactly. It acknowledges the person behind the counter, creates a tiny moment of connection, and generally makes the whole experience feel a bit warmer, more pleasant. It's not essential for getting coffee, but the material suggests it's part of the expected, friendly social fabric in these cultures. Contrast that with just barking your order and staring ahead. That brief exchange makes a difference.
It really does accumulate, doesn't it? These
Hmm.
tiny positive interactions. The material also mentioned public transport as a place for small talk.
Like on a bus or train or waiting in line, you might overhear or join in on small comments about the shared situation.
What were the examples? Something like, wow, busy morning today, huh? If it's crowded.
Yeah, or commenting on the weather again. Crazy weather this week, isn't it? Simple observations about the immediate shared reality.
Just acknowledging the situation everyone's in.
Exactly. And the material makes a really insightful point about this. It says these small comments help people feel more connected, even with strangers.
That's interesting. So it's not even about making friends necessarily.
Not always. It's about reducing that feeling of anonymity, of isolation that can happen in public spaces. It creates a micro sense of community, like, hey, we're all in this together waiting for this delayed train. It's a small signal of shared humanity that makes public life feel a bit less impersonal.
That's a really nice way to think about it. And the material came back to the British weather obsession here too, right?
It did. It really hammered home how central weather talk is in British culture, describing it again as that easy, neutral topic that's always available.
Giving those classic examples. Lovely day today, isn't it? Or the slightly more pessimistic, perhaps. Looks like it's going to rain again.
Ah, yes. And repeating this really emphasizes how a seemingly mundane topic can take on significant cultural weight. In Britain, it seems, talking about the weather isn't just filling silence, it's performing a social ritual. It's a universally understood signal of, I'm friendly, I'm open to a brief interaction. Its constant change provides endless material, and its total neutrality makes it the ultimate low-risk opener. Comparing this heavy reliance on weather to maybe slightly different preferred topics or contexts in the US or Australia highlights those subtle cultural variations the material mentioned.
These examples really drive home that small talk is learned behavior, tied to specific cultural norms. And the material wraps this up by saying that practicing it is essential if you want to sound natural.
Yes, and it directly speaks to you, the listener, who might be from a culture where this kind of interaction with strangers or casual acquaintances is less common. It explicitly states that in English-speaking countries, small talk is a normal and expected part of daily conversation.
That feels like a really important message. It might feel weird or unnatural at first if it's not something you grew up with.
Absolutely.
But the material is basically saying if you want to navigate these social waters smoothly, you kind of need to get on board with it. See it as part of the communication toolkit for these environments.
It might require reframing it in your mind, not seeing it as trivial or meaningless, but as a functional social skill. A way to signal openness, build comfort, and feel more connected and integrated into the social landscape. It's a way of being friendly.
Okay, wow. This deep dive,
Yeah.
guided by the material, has really given us a comprehensive look. We know small talk is light, casual chat about everyday stuff.
Mm,
We know its purpose. Comfort, connection, avoiding awkwardness. We've got our safe topics list, weather, weekend, travel, food, and we know why they're safe.
Neutral, relatable, low disclosure.
Exactly. And we know the danger zones, politics, money, intrusive personal questions, negativity, and why to avoid them.
Right, they create conflict, discomfort, or bad vibes.
And we've seen how it plays out in real life at work, grabbing coffee on the bus, and how culture shapes it, like the famous British weather chat.
It's simple on the surface, but quite layered when you unpack it.
Definitely. And the material doesn't just leave us with a theory, does it? It offers a practical challenge for you, listening now, to actually do something with this.
Yeah, it boils it down to a simple 3-step action plan, a way to put these insights into practice.
Okay, step 1. Go out and deliberately start a small talk conversation in English. Find an opportunity, any opportunity.
Step 2, when the other person responds, make sure you use a follow-up question to keep it going for at least another turn or two. Show you're listening.
Right, practice that active engagement. And step 3, Try to consciously use one of the specific phrases or topics we talked about today, something you learned from the material. Maybe comment on the weather, ask about the weekend, mention a local cafe.
It's a great little challenge because it takes the information from, just listening to us talk about it and turns it into something you actively do. It pushes you gently to try it out in the real world. And that's really the best way to build confidence with any skill, isn't it?
Absolutely. Practice makes, well, maybe not perfect instantly, but definitely more comfortable. Because ultimately, what this deep dive into the material really shows is that getting a handle on small talk is pretty fundamental for anyone living, working, or just interacting in English-speaking places.
It really is key for building those initial connections, feeling more at ease in social situations, and just generally sounding and feeling more natural when you're using English day to day. It fills those gaps, smooths the edges, and opens doors to positive interactions.
So as you go about your week, maybe keep some of this in mind. Think about those common small talk situations: waiting for the elevator, the start of a video call, lining up for lunch.
Notice when it happens around you.
And remember that point about subtle differences, how the British might lean heavily on weather, while maybe Americans are quicker to ask about weekend plans? Those little variations?
Yeah, the nuances in practice.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to maybe mull over. Given these differences, even within English-speaking cultures, how might the specific ways small talk is done reflect deeper cultural values? Like, what does the emphasis on certain topics or the expectation of small talk in certain settings tell us about communication styles or ideas about community or privacy in those places?
That's a fascinating question, comparing the how and why across cultures.
Yeah, and maybe turn it inward too. How does learning about these English small talk norms make you think about how conversations work in your own first language or culture? Are there similar rituals? Are they completely different? What's considered polite or awkward where you're from?
It definitely encourages a kind of cross-cultural awareness about something as basic as starting a conversation.
Exactly. So take the insights from today's deep dive, give that little challenge a try if you feel up to it, and just keep observing, keep practicing. The more you engage with small talk, the less daunting and more natural it will feel.
Keep listening, keep learning, and definitely keep talking.